just a few seconds here. And thank you all for coming out today on this very snowy day. I think everyone is fed up with winter, or at least I am, especially since I haven't gotten to go skiing much. Well, why don't we get started here? Again, thank you very much for joining us this morning for our panel, which is Original Internet TV, the Cross-Platform Explosion. My name is Sunjen Young, and I'm a managing director at Headwaters MB, which is a middle market investment bank, and I run the digital media and internet investment banking practice there. Our firm has about 70 bankers spread across the US, and we do mergers and acquisitions, advisory, and capital raises. Some of the companies that I've sold at Headwaters include rights flow to YouTube and Google, and YouTube is now using it as their music publishing platform. I sold Cooking.com to Target Corporation, and then last year one of the deals I announced was selling Perfect Market to Taboola, which is a very large private company in the content management space based here in New York and Israel. And in the video space, I represented Rumblefish in social video monetization in the sale to CSAC, a performing rights music organization, which is owned by Rizvi Traverse. They have a hot hand in the private equity market these days. They were the largest investor in Twitter pre-IPO. So with that, I'm just going to introduce our panelists and let them say a couple of minutes or a few minutes about who they are, what they do, and how it's relevant to our topic at hand. I'll make a couple of opening remarks, and then we'll have questions and leave time for answers or Q&A at the end. If you have questions in the middle, that's fine, just raise your hand. We welcome interactive discussion. So we've got a great set of panelists today. I think they represent a lot of interesting aspects of the industry right now. Right here I have Kurt Knudsen, who is his own brand. He's known as Cyber Guy. And next to him is Mitch Eskenes, who is Senior Vice President of Commercial in the Americas for Pixel, which used to be Kit Digital. And next to Mitch, I have Wes Williams, who is a Director of Product Management for Scripps Networks Interactive. We all are very familiar with the many great channels that Scripps Networks has. And then David Shadrack-Smith rounds out our panelists. He's the founder and director of Part 2 Pictures, who works with a lot of big brands. His responsibilities include being executive producer for This Is Life with Lisa Ling, CNN, and Oprah Winfrey Presents Belief. So with that, we're here today to talk about original internet TV. And the reason it's relevant is the US, for example, has always been known as a great place for consumption of TV. So Nielsen every year has a report that says that American households have their TVs on for average of 40 hours a week. And there's about 110 million TV households in the US. And I think the US population is somewhere around roughly 250 million. Now, take YouTube as an example, and I've moderated panels in the past about the power of YouTube, and this is not just YouTube for this panel, but it's a good proxy for what original internet TV can be. So on YouTube, there's over 1 billion users now. It's in 75 countries localized, 61 languages. The current statistics say that there are 300 hours of video being uploaded every single minute on YouTube. That's a lot. The number of hours that are watched daily on a monthly basis are up 50% year over year. So we're really just in the key part of the growth curve. And half of their views are on mobile devices, which gets into the second part of the title of our program, which is the cross-platform explosion. So with that as a setup, I'm going to turn it over to start with Kurt to talk a little bit about his background.
Sun, thank you very much, and we sure do need a sun on a day like today where there's little outside. But it does remind me a lot about being here in the Czech Republic. Prague. It is beautiful here. Don't you all agree? Beautiful design building and an even more handsome audience. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for having me here. 1996, I had this crazy idea that I would take my geek interest in life of disassembling the family's intercom system and attempting to successfully put it back together again, and was just absolutely into how things work, and launched with an idea of this thing coming called the internet, launched a small media brand using local news where a report is syndicated inside of local TV stations around the US, and that's called the Cyber Guy. And take it to today, and now I am a national contributor for Fox News, Fox and Friends in the morning, and Fox Business Channel, and occasionally NBC Today's show, where it's great people there. I'm also in this interesting place where not only have I covered technology, I've interviewed Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, been at every single major tech consumer electronic launch, never missed a CES, can speak geek, but also like to know how it can really rock and move us as just normal people in life. And I enjoy travel, and I enjoy blending technology with travel. And I also enjoy getting entertainment and content in video form the way I want it, rather than through traditional means of watching TV or going to a movie theater. And yesterday was a prime example of being on board an airplane. And it was Delta has this new thing called Delta Studio, where you can stream TV shows and movies inside their aircraft. Well, it was so complicated that I couldn't even figure it out until I was more than halfway through the flight and the internet busted. So there's a lot of growth and a lot of possibility in this whole arena, and I think you guys are really smart for being here. So I'd like to take what I do in terms of reporting in this area and what I've learned, and try to also parlay what I do, because I come from a very traditional background of being an entrepreneur who's also found himself being a reporter that's syndicated, and it's a business for me. So we derive revenue from advertising with annual sales roughly around $12 to $18 million. And you go, what? Off of a segment on TV? Yeah, there's a lot of money in TV. But there's even more money in where TV is going. And I hope we can impart some of that. I hope I learn, as you do today, from these great guys. Mitch?
Thank you. I appreciate it. And thanks, everyone, for being here. It was a challenge to get here in the morning, but glad we all made it. So kind of a great segue if we're talking about making money. One of the things, what Pixel really focuses on as a technology company is really how to monetize video, how to generate a positive return on investment on video. And that's really the key here. You know, it's really great to create video and put it online so people can see it, but at the end of the day, you want to make money. So we work with content owners and aggregators and distributors in multiple ways, with the biggest focus on is how do we help their business deliver internet video online and all to different platforms, television, traditional television, new television, mobile devices, but really come at it instead of from a technology perspective, which is what our roots are, but come at it from a business perspective. How do you put together really a comprehensive program, which includes the delivery platform, to make money, to look at all the aspects of what consumers would want to pay for that content, how to package that content, how the content owner should pay us as a technology vendor and partner with us to help make money together, so we're invested together. And then how to package the content up and what content they should actually have. So just because a company has their own content store of content, or they have aggregated some content, maybe there's more. Maybe there's more that they haven't thought about to build a better brand and a better business. So Pixel really is this 360 holistic company. Is the largest independent provider of video platforms in this space. We're just more than that, which is really what makes a difference. And this is a great discussion because the technology at this point is, yeah, we have one of those. And really the key is how do we make money off video, and how do we do it in a way that's different and makes our video or your video stand out from the crowd so it can be found amongst all the video that's out there. And 300 hours per minute means that the store is very crowded, and it's impossible to distinguish the good from the bad and to find it amongst these piles of videos. So that's what we do as a company when we work with our partners.
Hi, Wes Williams, Scripps Networks. I'm the product manager for our TV Everywhere apps. I'm lucky that I get to work with all of our great networks. So those brands include our apps for Food Network and HGTV, Cooking Channel and DIY, and Travel Channel. So all of our content is original to TV anyway. So, first we start there. In my world, original content, probably in this context, is really of two types. It's the type of videos that are related to shows that are on TV, but these videos are done for other platforms first. And then there are original content pieces that are produced specifically for the digital platforms and were never on TV. But one thing that I see, though, is in our apps and places where we put those side by side, people gravitate to the full episodes that were on TV. They just want to be able to watch them on their schedule, on their platform of choice. So people I see making that choice already. But of course, when you think about it, we've already put a lot of promotion, a lot of brand equity building into those full episodes that were on TV. So then it's an uphill climb for that original content that's exclusive to other platforms.
Great. Well, I am the guy with the deer in the headlights, the content provider, the maker of the content that's supposed to go on all of these different platforms. And I founded Part 2 Pictures about 9 years ago. Very traditional time in television. We had traditional clients like National Geographic and Discovery Channel and Oprah's network when that launched. And as we have evolved, we have also started to question and be a little bit afraid of the changes that are coming and how that's going to affect what we do, what the canvas of our work is, and what audiences we're trying to reach. So hopefully I can add to the discussion from the content provider point of view and ask some questions as well.
That's great. So thank you very much for those introductions. Just to set the stage at the beginning of our discussion, what do you all think about original programming for internet TV today? I mean, what comes to mind? I'll just open it up. Kurt?
I'll start and just say that I think you'll run into people that'll sit up on panels like this that will tell you the absolute, that here's the way deals are coming down. It's absolutely imperative that you partner with partners X, Y, and Z. The reality is, what I see is that the sky is the limit still. And generating platform relationships is key. Sure, you've got to be in the business to reach the eyeballs. And I still think this is a huge laboratory. And I think it's interesting to look at what's working. And there's stuff that I see that absolutely blows my mind in terms of, you've got people like David on the other end of this table who for years is well sought after by, owned by numerous name brand networks for his production skills. His production quality value is second to none. But then you turn on what is getting traction right now on YouTube. And the top 5 people on YouTube, the first one.
Let me just guess. Is one a cat video? No, I'm just kidding.
Not far off.
Is one PewDiePie.
Surprise egg.
Very, very, very close. So I actually have the notes. So there's this gal who's the #1 on YouTube, the most watched person. And what she started doing was simply opening up toys that were branded Disney toys. And what happened after that is nothing short of the thing that just boggles my mind, because her numbers are into the billions of cumulative video views of her channel. And if I can find my email here, I'll tell you the valuation point that was recently done by a analyst called Social Blade. And it pegged her into some extraordinary numbers that, when you are coming from a traditional television background, or even work right now in publishing and you've got some web revenue coming in, these numbers just go crazy. We're talking about, I'll find it, but her numbers were roughly $24 to $26 billion is her estimated value of annual ad revenue. From a girl who, I kid you not, and hats off to her, will sit in front of a single camera that's turned on a table, and she'll open up a toy, and it'll be in a she's very deliberate about what she does. She speaks to a 3-year-old. So it's grown into this international audience. of multiple millions of hits of each one of her videos. But it is nothing more than water's a better one.
Isn't she still anonymous too?
Is she what?
Isn't she still anonymous? You don't even know
Oh
who
no,
it
you know
is,
who she
right?
is.
Okay.
You know,
They're-
you know who these people are now because
Yeah.
advertisers are beating their doors down. What YouTube restricts though in their contracts is they are not allowed to share any monetary information of anything they're making. And what we do know is that the bulk of the revenues are kept by YouTube at this point. But there's a shift in that as well. But she will, I'm kidding you not, sit in front and just say, "This is a Poland Springs bottle of water that's in plastic and it has liquid water at room temperature inside. And I took the cap off earlier and thank you, bye guys." And you're like, what? That is what is gaining the very most traction of YouTube audience right now? Yes. The rest relate to video games about cheats inside of Minecraft or reviews of Minecraft. There's a guy who's number 3 on the list who is involved in mocking what's on the screen and narrating in a very funny, he's very talented with his humor, but he makes fun of what's going on the screen as it goes, and it's engaging in his own content. But I sit here and I go, wow, that's the take on the future of internet TV. Okay. Does it appeal to me? No. But am I the future of internet TV? Maybe not. Maybe I'm not your guy. Maybe we need to start looking at why I hopped on an airplane to visit my friend in London with her 8-year-old son on board the aircraft with a great internet connection. And while we had a wonderful night's sleep in business class trying it out, here's this kid bright-eyed the entire flight on YouTube, thrilled with the idea that he can just stream one YouTube video after another, never got a wink of sleep. Did he care? Nope. He was thrilled.
So I have to say my older teenage son watches a lot of YouTube of League of Legends, different League of Legends videos. Anyway, David and Wes, coming from more of the traditional broadcast perspective, what do you think of when you think of original internet TV today?
I think that all the webisode series. I mean, there are a lot of projects. First of all, that are just done as a creative outlet for people where maybe they don't expect to make a whole lot of money doing it, but they just feel that they want to do this, and then maybe it will turn into something, if they're really lucky. Then there are all the pieces I'd say they're being done more as promotional purposes, so or branded experiences where they really don't expect a wide audience perhaps, but they're hoping that they put enough of these things out there in the ethernet that something will bubble up and help whatever their real primary product is. One thing I don't think about when I think of original content, though, too, are the original shows were like Netflix and Amazon. To me, those are just TV, really. They just feel like TV because they're same sort of format. They're half-hour, hour-long kind of lean-back shows, fully scripted, and that's just the same to me.
Yeah, and it was interesting that you started off by saying that you get more traction on full shows on your platform than you do the web-only content. And I do find that regardless of how you intake it, whether it's through your cable or through your Netflix, or that people I know are still watching traditional shows. They're finding them differently, but the idea that you're going to tell a story, whether it's a half-hour, hour-long format or a serial format, is still quite powerful and engaging. And I do constantly ask my teams, who are all, range from 20 to 25 at times, what are they watching? And they're watching content that I can relate to as traditional form. I never thought I would be competing in the marketplace with something like Surprise Egg or these opening up present things, and that's bewildering to me. But I don't think it pushes what I do or what people are watching out of the way. I think it just broadens a perspective. It's a different experience when you watch that than when you're watching a well-produced, well-made story. And I do think that's still going to exist. The stuff that I think is the most interesting on the web that you don't see on traditional TV are things that are really experimenting with the form of content, that are trying out different cameras, or telling stories in different ways. Maybe there's an animated bit, or there's a some kind of, like, I watch a lot the New York Times op docs, for instance, right? And those they can be really well done, not in a way that might sustain over a whole long period, but it's just right, 5 to 8 minutes of somebody really experimenting with content and form, and that to me is what is the most interesting draw for me. I'm probably not going to watch.
So who is the audience these days for internet TV?
I think the audience is really the audience is everybody, but I think internet TV is taking it to putting it too much of in a box. I mean, at this point, television, video, animation of stories, right, live people, animation can be displayed on any kinds of device, and the key is really fitting the content to the device, and that's what's really happening. So to your point, we have these devices that were mobile, we walk around, which means that we can do other things at the same time. So the content that people are watching on them fits, right? It's 2 minutes long, it's 1 minute long. Whereas when the device is attached to the wall, or you go to a physical movie theater and you're expecting to be entertained for a long time, that content works. So the content fits the medium, and the medium drives the content, and what we do at any particular point in time is driving both of those things, right? So we have the ability to move around and watch things and multitask, so therefore we want content that we can consume in small parts. So even if it's a long story, it might be broken up into very short segments, as opposed to a half-hour segment to tell the same story, because that's how we're consuming it. So the whole idea of saying internet TV, it's really more of just storytelling, looking at the different devices that you want to target and how you want to tell your story and where you want people to consume it when they want to. And that's really what we have to look at. And if we can figure out ways to make, it's not an exact science, but if we can figure out ways to take advantage of those different things with different, and maybe the same story is told different ways for different mediums, right? So you might want to look at it and say, well, a cooking show, for example, or a long interview, maybe you break it up into small parts, one question at a time. I'm interested in that one thing. So Op Docs is a perfect example. It's a very short vignette, right? And it's perfect for me on the go, on the subway, in the taxi cab, but probably not going to sit down and watch 20 of them in a long story on the wall. So that's really what's making a difference. And the technology is helping facilitate all new ways to express ideas and stories, and it's making it convenient and easy for all of us to do that, which in the past you had to be an expert, right? You had to have a team, you had to have quality production. You still have to have that, but you don't need a whole elaborate setup to do it.
Look at how these content services all started taking off once they broke free from the desktop computer. Two things that made all these services really take off. So there was the path to the TV set. Once you could start getting all these things through, Roku boxes and other stuff on your TV sets. And the other one is mobile. Mobile and tablet took off, and you could carry these things around with you, like you mentioned. That's when suddenly people start spending a lot more time, I think, watching these.
Well, I mean, the key part of all this is the distribution chain, right? Traditional television, the distribution chain is fixed. Like, there is only so many channels. They're no more going to get created on the traditional cable, because there's just no more space to put them. And the more higher resolution channels we get, we actually lose space. So there's all this content that wants to go somewhere because it's great, and it was being stifled from the distribution chain. You had to fight really hard to get your thing stuffed down that one channel, which only has 24 hours in one day. There's a lot of content that falls off that's great, that people want, and now we don't have to make those choices. It can go to other places with less restrictive distribution chains where you can take control of it yourself. So we're getting access to things that we didn't get access to before.
But going back to audience, again, I use my own household as an example. I have 2 teenage boys, and they rarely watch the actual TV set anymore.
Because the things on that TV set are not interesting to them.
Well, that's a very interesting point. As somebody who's out pitching a lot in a lot of television channels, including lots of scripts, I have found last year that the conversation changed a lot to who their audience is remaining watching the terrestrial, or whatever we want to call traditional television. And that audience actually demographically bifurcated, so that the people were still watching when something was broadcast on television first run. And please stop me, you probably have more data on this than I do, but anecdotally, that was, you know, an older, more sort of middle America, a little bit more male, you know, the audience that was consuming shows that, like, sort of Duck Dynasty was like the model that everybody used last year, right? So everyone said, that's our audience. Those are the people left watching TV, whereas the younger, somewhat more affluent, somewhat more educated, urban, coastal audiences are still consuming television, but they weren't doing it by clicking on their TV. They'd cut the cord, as we all say, right? So as a person going in and pitching, they're saying, well, you know, we need this kind of show because this is our audience. And I think last year, that was the conversation I heard a lot. Make content for the audience that is left watching TV. Now, this year, I'm already feeling like the conversation is shifting again, and people are saying, wow, we lost that whole audience because we stopped making content for them. As they were leaving, we didn't give them any reason to stay, right? So suddenly, there's this awareness that maybe we need to build the content that will eventually go across many different platforms, but it has to start on TV, and there has to be a reason for people to want to still watch TV, whether we're talking about TV through your box or TV through, you know, apps and TV anywhere kind of things. But I found that there was a very different audience being targeted when everyone, I called last year was like the year of fear, right? in TV, but there was a very different audience that people were telling us to develop for. And now I feel like we're being encouraged, or we're getting the chance again to develop for an audience that is broader than just the ones left watching.
Oh, you bring up a good
TV.
question. You know, is the audience different, or is just the use case different? You know, or do the people who are watching on these other platforms want different content, really? You know, or, you know, it's like, for the most part, try to talk, you know, some sort of critical mass on which you can build a large business and sustain it. You know, or is it just that it needs to be on all these different platforms where people can watch on their schedule in the place of their choosing?
Exactly. Yeah.
I think one also takeaway for today for you guys is audience in itself is being redefined. So the idea of an audience is also now measured into a community. How are you engaging with your audience? How are the people who you consider an audience becoming a true fan or member or contributor or an engaged person within inside of a community of the sort of content or groups that you may put your content into that attract the same sort of person? So you'll see trends coming that not only do what we're talking about up here with regard to popular cable TV shows or network shows extending smaller vignettes into digital realms, like taking cooking tips for obvious one. You're going to see an evolution of even more marketing toward her two kids who are on YouTube to try to reach them in whatever niches they have identified their communities online to be. So if Scripps is wanting to access a larger group of people for HGTV, they may now reach much more strategically and with much more thoughtful partnerships with others that want the same thing, and with people who are already enjoying being in those sorts of communities. Be it an HGTV breakout channel, be it a Home Depot made for selling all the SKUs inside of a Home Depot, how to do it kind of content channel. They're going to come together in much smarter ways. And those partnerships, I think, are key for everyone in this room in terms of building what your future audience is. It's not about creating necessarily great content. You got to do more. You got to have the great content or a reason that people are chiming into it. And sure, there'll be people up here that say, I like 60 seconds, no, 40 seconds, no, 40 minutes, no, give me the full 2 hours. whatever it may be, you still have to reach these people in a way that they feel connected more powerfully than the passive history of TV. People want to be touched. We are now at a point where we have technology at our fingertips that we can touch back. And you got to be in that position. You've got to think forward in that way. Think, how can we touch? I think I'm always fascinated with what Apple does because they're a leader in the market. They are interested and engaged in TV content. You saw what they did with the music industry. I mean, they just owned it. Just bam. Napster who, and then all of a sudden they came in and did a legitimate deal and took over the music industry. You can bet they have their eyes on television. And when you have CEO Tim Cook, who is clearly, showing that the fabric of Steve Jobs' innovation is inside of their company, and they can look way out ahead, and they can spend the money to look way out ahead. He's now saying, and he said it 2 times over the last 2 years, because he usually don't do forward-looking statements, but he has said that he walks into his living room and he feels like he's trapped back in 1970, that he's 20 or 30 years back in time, and it is so prime for an entire revamp. So I think you're going to see that company once again, whether they succeed or fail in this realm, they're going to spark all kinds of forward movement in the way that we get TV. And if you just go crazy with your imagination, I think we'll look back and think it isn't so crazy that you're wearing an Apple Watch, you walk into the room and not a TV set, but your wallpaper that's now LED paper that you bought at Home Depot for $230 interprets exactly what you want to display on your entire wall, whether it's a waterfall over there, your favorite TV show in the middle, and pictures of your family on the right side. I think we're heading in that direction where you will have parts of your own life connecting back with content producers that are now making traditional television, and distributors who are bringing you television, and the YouTubes that are trying to figure out the next television.
Well, I don't think you can count Tim Cook out at all. On CNBC, they recently said that he has created more wealth in terms of market cap of Apple than during Steve Jobs' reign, clocking from when Apple started to come back. Does anyone else have any other lessons that you've learned to date about building audiences on these digital cross-platforms?
So I think that one of the biggest difference with internet TV and what we would like to call traditional TV is it's very discreetly measurable. We know who is watching, or the content knows exactly who is watching. Whereas in the past, there was this guess who your audience was. You built content, you built programming, and you delivered it to an audience, and you hope that audience arrived. Now you know exactly who's watching it, and it may not be the people you thought it would be, but you do know exactly who they are. Mm-hmm. And you can even know what they're doing around that content. You can even know where they're watching that content and what else they're doing. So it changes the whole game. All those analytics and all that knowledge can help fine-tune what's built, how to build it, and how it's consumed. It really makes a big difference. And that's the big shift that's happening, is that it's not this mass, let's see what happens. It's let's target exactly who those people are, and we can create value with that relationship. And maybe you don't need the massive number of eyeballs to have as much value. Maybe you can have more value by just targeting the very few people that are very interested in whatever that content is, because they're relevant. So it's a different way to look at things.
I think that goes to Kurt's point as well about community, and the trend that I think I feel like I believe in the idea of channels and brands and putting things together that are like-minded, and you know, as an end user of internet TV, it's just, there's so much content, there's so much stuff out there, you're never going to find anything. I get overwhelmed and I don't want to watch. But when it falls under banners and brands like a Scripps or you know, a Nat Geo or Discovery family of things, I can relate to those brands, I understand those brands. What I think will be an interesting trend that will be good for audiences, as well as good for a lot of these sort of disparate content creators on internet TV, is these sort of MCN or these channels where you're bringing together like-minded content that's being independently produced sometimes, but it's all under, you know, a banner of, I can imagine one being sort of like the smart TV one or the nature TV one, or, you know, these opening gifts one, but bring them all together. And I think that will be good for advertisers. It'll be good for the metric measurement. If I were betting on a trend, I would say it's going to end up, weirdly, the internet is going to end up looking a little bit more like traditional TV in some way, that you're going to have channels that you go to.
More like cable.
More like cable. Sorry.
Cable versus broadcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Curated channels, you're thinking.
Very curated under brands.
Sorry, can you repeat your question, please?
Is the trend building a distribution model? I mean, we dealt with the traditional way of getting content in the home market. You know, 1,000 cable channels that come in, I watch 4, right? But I have to pay for the rest of them. And well, all the other, what the internet does, whether it comes through on smart TV or it comes through on this thing here, it gives me the choice to watch what I want to watch when I want to watch it. And I disagree with you. I think it's really easy to find what you're looking for. Because you have all kinds of search applications and a keyboard that works very well, as opposed to a clicker button, right? Where if I go to Netflix, I have to do this, and this, which is kind of silly.
I don't know. I have direct
Just
TV.
wait.
I can't find anything.
So the question. I'm sorry. So the question is,
The distribution model.
what's the best distribution model?
Not the best, it's a change. The whole platform is changing. I mean, cable companies will lose their bite at some point in time because it's not as important to have programs distributed on cable as it is to find other vehicles to reach the consumer. And the question is how do you get it to the consumer?
Well, it's not really going to change. It might change. The companies might change, and the wire might change, but there's always going to be, to your point, there's going to be. I think as viewers and as consumers, we like aggregation. So Walmart will never go away because we like to walk into a supermarket and see lots of things. But the vendor of whatever the water may have their own store, their own boutique as well. So there's value. YouTube is an aggregator. I mean, YouTube is a giant cable company. It doesn't have a wire, but it's a giant cable company in the sense that it's aggregated content, maybe in a different way. Maybe it hasn't sought them out and hasn't organized it as neatly as a cable company is, but nonetheless, it's an aggregator. It's a place you can go where there's lots of content to find. So the world will just change in that way. So we have to separate out aggregation and physical delivery mechanisms, which is what the cable companies were built upon. But there will be new aggregators. These multi-channel networks are the new versions of Scripps, the new versions of NBC. They're companies that find content, put them together in package that are like-minded, but have a lot more flexibility. You know, Scripps may have only a few channels available to them, whereas a multi-channel network on the internet has an unlimited canvas.
But I mean, look at the cable model. I've got 7 boxes in my house. Right? I have one internet connection that does everything, and they don't have to have a box next to television in order to do it.
Sure.
And so when you kind of look at it deeply and you say, what's wrong with the model? I mean, Cablevision in the island, right, at least has these hubs that it's used. And I have Verizon now in the Department of New York. And you would think that with Verizon, it's basically across the street from me, that it would be a hub too. But no, I've got all these boxes in the house. And that model is all very old-fashioned.
I agree with you.
Changing quickly.
It's not really, it's old-fashioned and it's not. All it is in that model is the physical delivery and the choice of packaging are coupled. In the new model, the physical delivery and the choice of packaging will be decoupled. That's all. You'll have a guy that owns the wires, and someone has to put up a tower. Someone has to give you a wire. It doesn't happen for free. Someone has to make that investment. But maybe in the new world, the people that make that investment will be decoupled from the ones that go off and aggregate it. But then again, they will also want to add value to their wire, right? Put some flavor in the water so you have a slightly different water. So it's just going to change, but it's going to change slowly. But it's going to be the same and different at the same time if you can.
But I would maybe rephrase your question slightly different way, which is in the current model in terms of the role that the pay TV operators, like the cable operators and the studios play for producing content. What are there big threats to their current way of life?
Yes.
It's another way to think about it.
And sir, about distribution. So let's just talk about breaking news. So today announced NBC is allowing another TV ownership local station group called Gray. It has 24 NBC affiliates. They're now going to they have a deal with NBC to take their programming online in a whole new channel they're creating on their own on a local basis. Last week, we heard Jimmy Fallon with The Tonight Show teaming up with SNL, and Lauren Michaels with NBC and their concept of TV everywhere. NBC owned by who? Yeah, Comcast. Comcast is who? Oh yeah, those cable people. And guess what? They realize their own fate on the cable side, and they're coming up with a comedy-based approach to cable cutters distribution, cord cutters distribution. So they're going to bundle the SNL and Tonight Show together for a completely separate product online, available via multi-screen platform, not through the traditional cable methods. So you make a very good point with all of that. I think what's interesting is how many people here have ever been to a thing called YouTube Space? You've been to YouTube Space, okay? And then they also have a thing that's online, which is their Creators Academy, which is essentially the online version of YouTube Space. So what's interesting about this space is, so YouTube really wants to gain access to these people and to you. They want the pros in the industry to be there, and then they want these viral, enormous amateurs to figure out what the pros are doing right, so that YouTube can go on and can get into more serious programming and evolve into whatever YouTube's going to evolve into. So they created these locations there where there's free education inside of, there's one here in New York, Los Angeles, I believe Tokyo.
Well, they even have one in Sao Paulo, Brazil.
There you go. And they're growing. So you can sign up and you can really get insights into a whole curriculum of YouTube revealing a lot of their secrets. And I bet you're not going to hear anybody really tell you, except in that room, how it is that they figure out how to tell you to get your video of whatever you're producing to show up higher in the results. Does anyone know how to get your video to show up higher? Let's say that I'm searching for any content that David has produced, how to get it up to the top. It's interesting, they reveal the secrets there. So one of the key indicators is we think of, oh, Nielsen, we got to attract an audience, got to be 24 to 54, and here they are, and here's the numbers, and all they gather the box, and here's the way it's measured, and I don't know if it's measured right, but it is. We're going to go with that. Well, they're doing this thing, which is watch time. They can tell exactly when somebody clicked on your video, how long they watched, and at what second in your video they dumped out. The longer you can keep someone watching the content that you produce, the higher the value of your video to the algorithm inside of YouTube. So therefore, if you have engaging enough video or short enough video that retains a viewer all the way to the end in bulk, YouTube now values you as one of the best content producers, and therefore your results will be highest as it relates to how you've described your content and how others describe your content. I think it's an enormous takeaway. And I think it's a huge thing to think about. No matter how content is created right now, what are you doing to retain an audience? And what are you doing to get them to come back to that same honeypot they ended up in? And that's, again, about cultivating communities.
David, you look like you had some observations you wanted to share.
Well, I mean, definitely there are going to be losers and always winners. Change is opportunity. The model right now that we all know is you pay your cable bundle and every channel gets a piece of that. And I think there are a lot of channels that are going to disappear when that gets undone, right? They're living off of fees that are not going to be there very soon. But, I do still think that, there is an importance in curating, as you were saying. And the more you can count that, the more you can bring audiences, advertisers together. For a content provider, yes, you might be able to search for anything out there, but who's gonna pay us to make these programs that aren't just, handmade in somebody's living room, right? And that's gonna take some aggregation. That's gonna take a certain amount of capital to be able to fund programs that do elevate or do provide experiences or content that is different in, let's say, different in a style. And when you were talking about your living room and the wallpaper turns into a big screen, that's a big screen.
Mhm.
You have to fill that screen with something, and I'm not sure you can fill it with opening a bottle of water, you know. And we are, I'm hopeful that there's still going to be a space. There will be small screens and there will be very, very big screens. And when you get to those very, very big screens, your expectations of content are going to match the size of that canvas. You're going to want something that's big, it's beautiful, it's well shot, that's you know, a story that you can settle into and watch and enjoy. However you interact with it on your second screen or not, that is still an experience, I think, that has proven itself to be lasting. And that's going to take money to make that. And that money isn't going to come from just being able to search anything anywhere and find a video on YouTube or one on Vimeo or one on somebody's site. That's going to take advertising dollars. It's going to take some kind of distribution model where money gets back to the aggregators that eventually flows down to the content providers, content makers, creators, whatever we are, so we can go out and produce shows. At least I'm hoping.
And what
that
David,
happens.
I think it will. I mean, here's a prime example. Look at Netflix. Look at Amazon. Who would have ever thought that Jeff Bezos, the guy who sells books online, would be the one who's funding the future of Hollywood and the future of internet TV in terms of no middleman, outrageously great artistic programming where the artists and the creators are really left alone. Advertisers are not playing as big a role in it. And because that's not Netflix or Amazon's background, you have amazing shows coming out because they're letting the leashes roll out. And we just saw the award seasons with, was it Transcendence and Transparent, sorry. And it was interesting to watch my mother. I put in an Apple TV in her house, and she's very progressive and very advanced and young for her age. And she's one of the first with an iPhone. And part of that was, Mom, I'm the cyber guy. You can't have that old piece of crap. So here's a new iPhone. So, but she embraces it. So I put in an internet TV and a subscription to Netflix for her, and it went unused for months until she's out to dinner with her friends and suddenly they're talking about House of Cards and then Orange is the New Black. And something that seemed utterly impossible for my mother to do, which was to flick on the TV, change the input to the Apple TV, and then navigate to House of Cards, is like her driving the car. And if you think about it, the idea that we can all more or less get in a car and drive it, it's a fairly complicated machine. There's all these buttons and levers and this big wheel in the middle and there's a seat and what's this belt and you gotta shut the door and how fast, how do I stop it? It's just that we're used to it. So it seems like we just take it for granted. I think one other thing to keep your eye on is what can you develop that is the next Netflix, the next Amazon way of reaching that audience. So what we see in the future of internet TV, when you look at what David's talking about, like great storytelling that isn't just opening a bottle or showing a toy in a 30 or 3-minute clip, you're looking at major budgets. I don't know that they knew what return they were going to get. We're talking about rolling the dice and you get to buck the trend on a corporate. I mean, some of you work for corporations where you're like, well, what's the P&L on that? When are we going to see the return? Well, at some point, you really just need to experiment. You need to have a budget that says, we believe if we just throw 200 things up on the wall, well, maybe 10 of them will stick. And maybe 2 will shape our destiny into something phenomenal. I think it really will do you well because you're either going to hit that as your base for creation of content, or you're going to be a solo content creator with a toy or a bottle, or your other shoestring kind of budget related content. And hey, you may hit a home run with that. Or you're likely, if you're going to do anything serious to move mountains, you're going to have investors. And investors are going to be like the corporations. They're going to want to know when they get the return and when is that. And I think the best thing for you would be to think, in order to create the next level or to push people into some enormously new process or way of seeing something, or just rolling the dice and putting deals together you don't know exactly will offer a return, is to somehow come up with a part of you that believes so strongly. And you're here for a reason, but there's got to be a part of you that believes that you've got to take more risks, and you're going to have a whole bunch of loss before you have that one win.
But I think you've brought up some really interesting points, which are, if you think about the number of the shows that have had success, the entities that are backing these shows, which are gaining a lot of popularity digitally, are sort of the new wave. I mean, but it's Amazon and Netflix. And no one, I think, would have thought that that could have occurred even just 2 or 3 years ago. And, you know, Netflix is coming out with Tina Fey's next TV series,
Right.
which is
Yeah.
pretty amazing too.
But I don't think they've reinvented the model, though. I mean, they're going out there, they're hiring production companies,
Yeah.
they're spending millions of dollars an episode, you know, so that's still
No,
being
they're
different.
not reinventing the model, but the roles are changing in terms of who the players are.
Yeah, you've cut out TV stations, you've cut out television networks, you've cut out the entire studio system. Hollywood is out of it completely.
Yeah. But what's interesting about that, I think, is that since they're not doing traditional commercials with those, all those eyeballs are watching platforms where advertisers can't really reach them. But advertisers still have to reach their audience, right? They still need to be able to sell all their items. So they're still going to go to those places where there are those ad opportunities.
And they may go to communities where these same viewers that enjoy the non-advertised subscription-based content hang out. Or there may be spin-off content related to it.
I'd
allow
actually put a question to the experts here. You know, do you think the model is going to be more pay to play, right, or pay for your content? HBO Go, then you get your subscription to Netflix, and you get your subscription to Amazon, and before you know it, you're doing subscriptions for 20 different channels? Or is it going to stay advertising based, or how do you see?
Yeah, I think that mix is going to be around for a long time. I mean, frankly, I was amazed at how many people signed up for Hulu to pay for that and watch commercials too. But you know, cable's been doing that for decades, though, and it's worked very well. So I don't think that's going to go away overnight. And then I think that the secret weapon in Netflix's quiver is always, if they wanted to start putting a pre-roll, say, before every video in exchange for keeping your monthly subscription low. Think of all the impressions they could generate through something like that.
And that with one decision in one office with one company, you could do that tomorrow. That isn't how old TV operates. It takes processes and meetings and agreements, and you have affiliates you have to satisfy, and so on and so forth. I think it's very interesting where we're going. The one thing, you know, it's interesting. There's another deal I just wanted to mention because I thought it was kind of interesting. So you have Ron Howard and Brian Grazer, who are, I mean, bar none, outstanding filmmakers. They know what they're doing. And they partner with a guy that I know, Ed Wilson, and they created a company called Newform. And Newform just announced yesterday, day before, maybe it was last week, but it's fresh in my mind. They announced an agreement with Lisa Kudrow's company. It's, what the hell is that all about? Well, it makes sense. Lisa Kudrow did her whole web therapy series that they initially went out online with and then ended up back on traditional cable model. What they've done is attracted all of these sort of viral, huge YouTube stars, put them in a bucket, and then you've got these amazing storytellers. I don't know what's going to come out of that kitchen, but I know these people that are running it, and I can bet you that it's going to be something that I like at least once, twice, and hopefully longer. And maybe they're the next thing. And maybe it is that we are subscribing again for another $3. In answer to the question about, will we head in a direction where the market is so fragmented that we're paying for, like I'm paying DirecTV, I pay Netflix, I did Hulu, dropped it, I have an Apple TV, and I am also the lazy sucker who will download an iTunes, related TV show. I love a couple TV shows. My frustration lies with, here I am spending all this money. At some point, it's like, oh my God, am I really getting a return on spending this much money? Am I better off just going without? Am I better off doing what a lot of younger people are doing, which is finding it less expensive somewhere else, but it's the same content, but it took a lot of effort to get there? I think what these guys are saying is absolutely right. We're for a long time, we're going to see these subscription-based and fragmented ways of getting media. I, though, think that there will be an Apple of the world, and I don't know if it's Apple, who's going to come in, and you'll yet again have a few major companies that have recreated the entire world of how we get TV.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about monetization, because I agree from a consumer perspective. I mean, this sounds really bad, but I have like 5 or 6 TVs in my household. I pay Cablevision a lot of money, and I've got, I think we have 2 Apple TVs, 1 Chromecast device. We pay Hulu. I cut out Netflix because we weren't using it.
How do you get House of Cards?
Yeah, I'm not watching House of Cards, but the no offense to Cablevision, because I like you, I like the Dolan family, whatever. But I feel like when I look at my monthly bills every month, the entity that I have the most personal resentment for as a consumer is Cablevision, the cable operator. Not to pick on them, but but let's talk about monetization. What do you all see in terms of this mix of subscriptions and advertising-based revenue, and how are advertisers reacting to it? And what do you think the mix can potentially be?
I think advertisers like this new model because it's very measurable. They know the results they get for the money they spend, and they can target their ads, they can target their items towards the communities and the individuals that really want them. So this is a great new world for them, right? This is the world where it's going to be, and the question is how do they best take advantage of this new world, right? And what are the tools they need, and what do the content owners need to do when they create programming? What do they need to do to help engage the viewers so they stay engaged as long as possible, so the advertiser can promote their wares, maybe in the traditional way where there's an interruption, right? And you watch something else, or maybe in the original way of television where the advertiser owned the show and it promoted it throughout, right? I mean, the dancing signal
show up at the doorstep because they're being pushed there. If you've really done a good job, what you're going to do is partner with those kinds of people that already love and are all about the kind of content that State of Affairs is all about. Does that make any sense to anybody? So it's interesting how you can use and leverage YouTube and social media to push audiences where you want them to go in an organic way and sometimes in a fake way. And the fake way doesn't have any legs. It doesn't last. So you've seen Hollywood had a trend, and I won't name any studios, but I'll tell you that most all of them did it. To market a film, they came up with a genius idea at the beginning of Facebook, Twitter, and the whole sphere. And they would hire digital content companies to create fake fan pages of the film before the films even come out. And then suddenly we're liking you just see this fanatical person. Well, the person doesn't exist. It's the studio's marketing mechanism. Pretty brilliant, but that has no legs. You can't do anything with that because it's not real. At some point the movie comes out, at some point there is no real person there, so you can't keep that up. So what the newer trend and the better trend is to find authentic ways of finding community in social media and on YouTube and with TV content and marrying those things so that it just grows and grows and grows. And then in terms of monetizing it, bringing in the brands that also want to reach those same people and in a very organic way, bring in that brand.
And brands may become channels. You may go to GE to watch content about science, and I already do sometimes. But on the talent question, which I think is very interesting, because we're constantly in fact, we are WME clients, or they're our clients. I don't know how you're supposed to talk about that. But, we're constantly being put together with people who have internet followings and asked to develop traditional TV shows for them. And it's semi-successful.
It's hard to make an orange be an apple, isn't it?
It doesn't always translate, both in terms of the people and in terms of the content that they're doing in one realm can't really find its home in the other realm. And then the flip side of that is we have lots of talent on our roster that will walk into a pitch, or maybe it's a digital platform, maybe it's a traditional TV platform or network, and they'll say, what are the socials?
Right.
And that's a question I had never heard before 2014, and now it is a very real question.
Sorry, which question?
What are the social numbers?
Do they
What
have
are
a
their
built-in
numbers?
audience already?
What's their Facebook following? What's
So-
their Instagram following? What's their
Right. So how can you
numbers?
move people? What is your following in social media? So from a talent perspective and on the news side, and yet still being an entrepreneur in my own life, those numbers, ironically, even though this is my niche, I'm late to the game in moving those numbers. I was late to the game and focusing on, because I'm so focused in storytelling and I wasn't focused on engaging. Now I'm awake to it, and I have reports daily on every source as to how many numbers were we able to use historic old-fashioned TV, such as Fox News. And you can say one call to action on TV and suddenly get 18,370 people to move in your direction. And I'm focused on those numbers because, for the very same reason, if you're a producer, if you're especially a talent in Hollywood, and you expect to get financed on a film or TV show in the future, those numbers matter. You're nobody without having some traction in that realm.
we think they matter. And the question is that really turning into
they matter
real,
to the deal at the moment,
Yeah.
right? But we don't know that they're better for having had the numbers.
Mhm.
I promise you, I'm not better at telling you what's going on in technology because of how many people follow me.
Mhm.
I can tell you this, is that we have gone astray in terms of humanity, that we somehow allow a discussion about a rocket that we give a 17-year-old zit-faced kid who races golf carts the same amount of time and value as we do the bona fide rocket scientist who could actually tell you everything about the rocket.
And we're not going to name who that is it faced 17-year-old is.
That is Lawrence Fishface. And you know where you are. We know where you are. We'll see you this afternoon with the.
So we have time for just a couple of questions. Question in the back, real quick.
Moving back to monetization, I launched a couple of video on demand channels across platform channels. And when you look at metrics of, how much an advertiser is going to pay, I remember back even in 2005, we had one track and they had all these stats on this is when they pause, this is this. How much do you give that advertiser? And now are they asking for that more information where it makes it difficult for you? At what point there do you stop providing the whole picture, or do you always provide the whole picture?
I'm probably not the best person really to comment on that because I'm usually not working with the advertisers to that level. I've worked with advertisers and things like co-branded sweepstakes and things like that where we do work out what we're going to give them. I don't really know what's given to them about, minute by minute kind of program.
I can answer.
Stuff.
I can answer that, and from my small little world, what I can tell you is the better path is to not be the one reporting the data, but to subscribe to a house that is in a way that is transparent, that allows them to make those choices. And then where your value comes in is how to roll with that data. So you're always going to have an advertiser utilizing data to try to get a leverage position and grow. And that's their job. They'll do that with 2 pieces of data or 200 pieces of data. So really it's about staying committed to your partnership with an advertiser. And I'm just looking back at my own meetings of just saying, we're in this for the long haul. I'm so glad that, and I reemphasize the value that brought them to me in the first place, despite all the data.
So we have time for just maybe 2 quick questions. Question there from the woman at the end.
Yes, that's great. Any comments on particularly David about repackaging and repurposing content, like content that maybe is the cutting room floor or the
Yeah.
case, because
No, please. Yeah.
this is a highly unusual one. But I thought the most compelling thing I watched this weekend was the Andrew Warnow interview with, it's a tragic reason, but they showed the whole thing.
It was fascinating, right?
There must be other examples.
There is, that was sort of where it all started, right? When the internet came, they would say, what do you got on the cutting room floor
like
that
DVD
we
extras.
can, right. It's like the extras. We can put it on the web and we can do that. And now, interestingly, that still exists for sure, we have a big show coming in the fall called Belief, and it's Oprah's Magnus Opus thing. And we're now starting to actually go out and create content specifically to surround the show, and so they can do a whole campaign. And some of that's coming from the cutting room floor, some of it's original. But the other thing that is interesting is the way we're creating shows or pitching shows to be what we call snackable. I didn't invent the word, but they're almost like each piece of the show is going to be 5 to 6 minutes, and the whole show will air on TV, but each piece can be broken off and shown across different platforms. And we're thinking about that as we go in to the show, and we're thinking about what are the additional content or second screen opportunities or any opportunities. I put on my first VR glasses a week ago, and I thought, brilliant. Okay, I want to create some content surrounding a show like Belief. I want to put a VR camera in the middle of Mecca and let people actually experience being there. So we're constantly more and more thinking about that extra content. Some of it's from the cutting room floor. A lot of it's from the cutting room floor until there's money to go out and do more original content around it. It's still a little bit.
I like that term, snackable. Okay, gentlemen, one last question.
Do you think there's going to be a rise of what I would call branded channels, not in the YouTube sense, but like with Roku or something like Audi, that's something like Audi TV, BMW TV? Because today the big brands have their own internal, expensive, pretty high quality production, but that's not an actual channel. The rest of us, I don't know.
Yeah, for
you see the movies with Audis, the commercials, all the making of it, blow it up, blah, 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 all that stuff.
That some of our biggest advertisers are companies like Kraft and Lowe's and Home Depot, and they also generate a lot of content themselves, for their own recipes and products and how-to videos.
And they acquire
Yeah.
companies that
There
do.
is that channel out there.
I think they'll get there.
Well, there is. I mean, Red
Yeah.
Bull is a perfect
Red-
example.
Yeah.
Red Bull and
Yeah.
GoPro. GoPro is a media company. It's not a technology company.
And I think you're wise also to think of yourself as a channel. Seriously, just every company, every being in its own form is a channel.
It's kind of weird, but you're probably right.
I haven't has my son's piano recital videos.
I'd subscribe to that.
I just shovel snow.
I've got a video of my dachshund running in the snow.
That's more story than opening.
Okay, I'm going to let this woman ask one last question.
I'm just wondering, what do you think the response by the cable companies will be in terms of either the content they provide in all those 1,000 channels and their box or their the remote? Is that connection going to be able to change? Is the technology going to improve? Can they actually improve it? How they get viewership data the same as the internet?
Well, so often they're providing the pipeline, so I think they'll be able to get that kind of data, sure. And then, I think that they'll be more inclusive in the future too, because they're glad to sell any content really, as long as they're in that content reselling business. As long as they're an aggregator, I think they'll be glad to take content from any source that they can package and resell.
And they have the money and leverage to also get into the next space that may not relate to the box. And then for anyone to succeed with them, and you ask the question about, will that ever change? The day you can have someone like a Tim Cook from Apple convince them that partnering in a bigger, new way is meaningful to them without the threat of losing the box, meaning their revenues are gone, is the day you start to see that change wildly.
Yeah, there are probably people who pay $1 or $2 a month for a Funny or Die channel on their cable system.
Yeah, another $1 or $2 doesn't make a difference. Well, thank you very much for staying, and let's give a hand to our panelists.
Pleasure meeting you. Nice meeting you guys.